Good afternoon. Good afternoon it is. So you just had a very heavy technical session just before tea. So my session is very much on the surface and it's about what's happening around us. And we'll be talking about the emerging challenges which we are finding it today in the world as such and also in India. Yeah. Okay, so this is what I would be primarily covering. And first is who we are, then we talk about challenges which are at the global level, which are also applicable to India, of course. And then there are specific challenges which are applicable only in India. And then there are certain suggestions so that if we can take some corrective or preventive actions on that. And when we're talking about who we are, it is not for the publicity purpose, but it is for the purpose so that we can add some kind of a credence to the challenges that we talk about. Because when I'll be talking to you about challenges, it is the result of about 60 odd years of experience that we had in dealing with the oil spills around the world. So that is the purpose of saying who we are. Okay, it is one of the most important things for any company is to have a very clear vision, because then only you can move toward that with your actions on that point. So this is what is our vision is. And here the bottom line is it is within our lifetime. We want to do it now. We are not looking for 2050 or 2060. We want to do it now. That is what is our vision is. Okay, let's talk about who we are. There are very few companies, and it is for the youngsters who are there. Lamor is listed as a Nasdaq green equity company. When we talk about Nasdaq green equity, there are about less than 70 odd companies in the world which are Nasdaq green equity. It means you put 50% of your revenue, what you earn, into an activity which are considered green. So that is where it is the part of our sustainability mission. Okay, it is a global company, but it is based in Finland, and Scandinavian countries are particularly fussy about the cleanliness of seas around them because they are part of their life. So that is how it is based in Finland now, but it is present in more than 25 countries. And this is what we normally cover in our scope. We provide the oil spill response prevention, recoveries, crisis management, and soil and water remediation, because these all are a part of the oil spill domain. In the case of oil spill response, as of now, the 40% of the global market is with Lamor in terms of both services as well as for the equipment. And it is one of the few companies which also provide the equipment and also to the services. Okay, now coming to the challenges in the oil spill trends, when we talk about it, here also the line which is starting is within our lifetime. That is again I'm saying it is the operating line for us, which we work. And when we talk about challenges, first we talk about the global challenges. That is, we are also facing it in the developed countries or the countries in the European nations or even let's say in the Latin American part. The first and the foremost challenge that we are facing is the technology is developing at a very, very slow pace. And that is precisely for the reason, because I'm sure you must have heard many lectures on the environment, and everybody tells you that, okay, we have to save this earth because our children have to come and they should also be able to see. And that, in our opinion, is not a correct mindset. Why our children? Why not us? We have got a life left now. Why can't we do it now in next 10 years, next 20 years? So if you don't have that mindset, you don't invest so much money in the R&D, because now let's look at the industry 4.0. It is happening all over. I mean, it's happening in IT, it's happening in manufacturing. But as regards the oil spill equipments are concerned, there is no connectivity which is happening within the equipment. We are still using the same equipment which we are using, let's say 20 years ago. Maybe the materials have changed a bit, but not the technology. The core change has not come into it. And that is why when I said that Lamor is investing quite a bit in the technology part of it, like for example, the integration of the boom. Now we are developing a boom which is a self-propelled boom, and it will be linked to the satellite directly, and it will have its own artificial intelligence built into it, so that it will see that how it is to be operated or how it is to be spread. As of now, it is dependent upon the human intervention. So we want to remove the human intervention and bring the concept of Industry 4.0 in the connectivity as regard the oil spill equipments are concerned. Of course, that we don't, the companies all over the world who are manufacturers of the equipment are not spending enough money in the R&D budget per se, because it's a capitalist world as such, and everybody wants to maximize the profit. And because of that, the development is not happening at a pace as it's happening in any other industry with regard to the equipments are concerned. The another challenge which is at the global level is the logistical and the intergovernmental coordination. Just to give you an example, what happens in actual oil spill, when an oil spill happens, I'll just give you an example. This is a Deepwater Horizon. I'm sure you must have seen a movie in Netflix. It's available in the Netflix. Deepwater Horizon is a movie. It's made into a feature film. And Lamor was the prime responder as far as the Deepwater Horizon was concerned. Now just look at the kind of logistics challenge that we faced in the Gulf of Mexico. There are 112 air cargo shipments have to be moved from all over the world, because not a single country, or we have about 4 warehouses with us. All warehouses will not have these kind of equipment. So we have to move the equipment from the world over. So how does it happen? There is a custom clearances, there is a government regulations, you have to get a special flight approvals to flight to take place at a particular given time. There are so many diesel engines were moved. Now in the world today, you will be very surprised, if you want to buy an engine today, the waiting period is about 4 to 5 months. Now we have to approach the dealers of the engines and the engine manufacturer so that they can supply us the engine as early as possible. When I talk about early, it means 24 hours and 48 hours. That is the time frame that we talk about. So this is a huge logistical and administrative challenge. And there are about 3 kilometers of the boom which has to be transported. And more important, because you don't have enough manpower, if you look at the kind of spill which happened in Deepwater Horizon, we have to train almost 1,500 people. And those people are such who have never seen oil spill, they have no idea about the oil spill. And when this Deepwater Horizon spill happened, exactly at the same time, 3 more spill happened. Because we have a long-term contracts for manning these oil spills. So we have to act on those spills also. The one was in Delhi and another was in Hong Kong at that particular point, and Lake Michigan, that was a smaller one. So this is the logistic challenge that we face, because we face a lot of problem in the customs and all that. Now new convention is coming up in which we have already put up our views to the IMO with regard to, in case of a tier 1, a tier 3 spill is declared, how the governments are supposed to move. The treaty is also there with India to ratify. If India ratifies it, then the movement will become much easier. The other important part in the oil spill challenge worldwide that we are facing is the people power. Because at the core of any operation is the people. It is not the technology, it is not the equipment, but it is the people who actually make the operation success or a failure. In case of an oil spill, it is a very niche segment, and there are not many universities who will teach you how to fight an oil spill. So it is dependent upon the training part of it. The challenge that we face in the training is the efficacy of training, which is suitable to the geography and the equipment fit. For example, in the case of an Indian context, if I'll tell you, let us say there is a person, we have to give a IMO level training. There's a training IMO has designed. Now you contract an agency who will give you a training. He'll calls you to Delhi, puts you in a 5-star hotel. You do a 4 days or 5 days of training in the IMO level, and you go back to your Visakhapatnam Port Trust or the Mumbai Port Trust. The training which I have given you in the room in a 5-star hotel is entirely different from the real life situation which you're going to face in the Visakhapatnam Port Trust. It is going to be exactly similar the way you all people are doing management or whatever it is now, but when you go to an office to work, you will find the situation there are entirely different. And that's the problem with the training that we have got as of now in Indian context, where it is not relevant to the actual work that you are doing or supposed to be doing in case of an emergency. And you're also being trained on an equipment which probably you are not going to be using. Let's say a person working in Mumbai Port Trust may have a different equipment altogether than the person who is using in a Visakhapatnam Port Trust or let's say Tuticorin Port Trust. But the training is same. So that's another problem that we face. Another important aspect is the delivery of training. When we talk about delivery of training, training is a very deep subject and education as such is a deep subject. The question is, in whatever time when an instructor is teaching, he is able to convey only 70% of the content which he is supposed to deliver to you. And out of the 70%, a student who are very bright are able to grasp only 20-25% of that. So much of data or information is lost between the instructor and the student. In the case of an oil spill, the challenge is even double-fold. Just look at it, I'll give you a small example. Now, this happened, like say, for example, in the case of a Red Sea area. Now, Saudi Arabia, if you look at that whole country, is highly dependent on the Red Sea area because their drinking water and all the kind of water is taken from the Red Sea area. So, now they have got a contract, let's say, with Lamor as a whole country, and that contract is for 3.5 years, in which we are supposed to take care of their entire oil spill pollution, if at all it happens, in the next 3 years. Now, in these 3 years, I have a time, I have an equipment supply, it's a complete comprehensive contract. Now, I can give it training at my pace. I can select student at my pace because I've got 3 years, there's no emergency, there's no firefighting going on as of now. Now, look at the second case in which we participated, because we had a major oil spill in Peru last year, in 2021. Now, when we went there, suddenly, now Peru is a underdeveloping, or I would say a developing country as it's in India. And a spill has happened there. We cannot move so many people there. 800 people are required. So all the fishermen or all the locality people, first of all, they're not interested in going into the water because it's a very dirty kind of a work which you have to do it. But then you have to train them, and everybody was given a training of 6 to 8 hours. And if your training is not proper and if it is not delivered properly, there could be an accident with the person who is fighting the oil spill. He may get hurt, and then company has to pay a huge amount of compensation thereafter. So one has to be very clear. So the delivery of training is a very important challenge. And in Lamor, I'm very proud to say that we have a very specific department which consists of psychologists and also the educationists who are developing a ways, what kind of ways it can be delivered so the human mind can receive it as quickly as possible. So it's an art, and we can have a lecture sometime on a later date that how these trainings are actually given. Okay, the other issue which is happening now, it is a global level, it's the sustainability of oil spill management. Now, when you carry out an oil spill fighting anywhere, after the oil spill has been taken care of, the huge amount of waste is generated. Now, how do we handle that waste? I don't know if you are followed the oil spill which happened in Mauritius. Now, in the case of Mauritius, by the time somebody reacted, the entire oil has reached the shores, and it has killed all the corals. Now, the oil spill has killed only 60% of the coral, but the oil spill management thereafter has killed the 100% of the corals there. Now, that is the problem with the oil spill, sustainability in the oil spill management. There is a huge amount of waste in terms of booms, in terms of oil which is left on the beach and which need to be taken care of thereafter. So, this is the basic challenge. Now, the concept which is coming up in the European nation is when you buy an equipment, you have to, earlier there was a concept of costing. Like India, we are still in the era of costing that everybody has to be L1. I mean, they'll give you a specification. If you are lowest bidder, you are selected, and they'll take you a costing. Then in India also, now we are moving in certain sector like space and all that, we are going to a life cycle costing, that we don't take the bid, the cost which the vendor has given, but we also take that how much it will take to maintain this equipment for, let's say, next 10 years. That cost is also added, and then you arrive at the L1 cost. But in Europe now, we are shifting to end of life costing. It means the equipment has to be again merged with the earth in a sustainable manner. So toward that, like for example, in India now, last year in the month of March, we have got Parliament has passed a new legislature which is called EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility. It means the producer is responsible for whatever he is producing so that it merges with the nature in a sustainable manner. So as a Lamor, we also always give an option that we buy back those equipment, whatever we have sold after 10 years or 15 years. It is our responsibility. You must have seen that like Samsung and all that, they all tell you, okay, mobile phone, you can give it back to them. So this is as part of the EPR, which is there in the world, but India has just adopted in this year. So this end cycle costing, end of life costing is an important concept to be followed as far as the oil spill management is concerned, because sometimes the cost of a boom is not what is being shown in front of you, but how much time it will take to again merge it with the nature or take it in a sustainable manner. So that is a new challenge which is there. Okay, let's look at this small picture. This happened in Ennore. We had an oil spill in Ennore in 2017. At that point, when we're talking about sustainability of the operation, even I just went there, I think this year in the month of February, I think we had gone there on that. No, this happened in February, but this is in 2017. But we visited Ennore port this year sometime in the month of July and August. And this is on the road which goes toward the Ennore. Even today, normally on these rocks, if you see there is a black area on the rocks, you will find the crabs and the natural creatures, they start inhabiting there. But even today, after 5 years, there's not even a single crab you will find there. That is the kind of oil spill operation that we have done there, because we have cleaned that with a particular chemical, and that chemical is just not going off, and no creature is sustaining there. So sustainability of an oil spill operation is an extremely important aspect. So as regard, that's what I'm saying, with regard to the, as far as Lamor is concerned, now this is a, since we are a, I said, is a NASDAQ green equity company, so we have an audit which is done. So sustainable operation is one of the most important things. Yes, it increases the cost of the product, but I think there's no other way to move forward. In India also, we have to take up this challenge. We have to reduce our own carbon footprints, and the equipment that we are supplying to the customers, it should not become a waste at the end of it. As a recycling solution, I mean, we have just invested a huge amount of money, almost about 12 million euros with a startup in Porvo for recycling of the plastic bottle. So this is going to be the first plant in Europe which is being done for the part. It is part of our sustainability mission that we have got. Okay, now these were the challenges which we found in the global level, but now look at the challenges which are very, very specific to the Indian context. Now in India, you know, the biggest challenge that we normally find is that we are extremely religious people, and we believe a lot in God. So many things are left to the God. He will take care of it. So this is the one challenge that we have seen. And if you look, I think in the morning also, Sharma sir has shown this slide. If you look at this marine perspective of India, I don't think there is any nation who is more susceptible to environmental hazard as India is. And if you look at all this thing which is there, and when we talk about the largest importer of the oil, and particularly now, let's say when we get the oil from Russia and there is a ban by US on the embargo on Russia, so what people do is they will not use the regular ships which they normally use for carrying this oil. They take out ships which are already decommissioned, or the ships which are not available in the normal market. Because if you use the ship for taking oil from Russia to anywhere else, that ship will be banned. So no owner of a ship will take out a new ship. He will try to buy a ship which is very, very old, or which is already condemned, just to transport that oil. Now it means when you use an old ship, the risk of oil spill becomes even more at that particular point in time. Okay, these two were there, the global challenges. This is also in India as far as the local challenges are concerned. But we have two more challenges apart from this in the slow pace of technology development, which are particularly in India. In India, the oil spill management, the nodal agency is government. It is the Indian Coast Guard is the nodal agency. Now, the nodal agency is not into R&D. He has no, I would say, his charter is not that to develop an industry or develop a new product, and he does not have any department which will get into the development of a new equipment. They are a user particularly. And then we have an industry. The problem is a catch-22 situation. The Coast Guard put a specification and industry deliver exactly that item. But somebody has to go beyond that specification and get a new product to the market, and that is why the technology is not getting developed in India as such. And then as yesterday there was a, I think, discussion that the industry, operator and academia, there is no cooperation here as such, which we have got. In fact, I was discussing with the people yesterday, whether in ONGC or otherwise, there is no specific department whose only job is to interact with academia. Like one gentleman yesterday said that if I have to speak to somebody that I want to put my student for PhD or learning or some data, whom should I speak to? So it is primarily left to the HR department. But whereas if you look at the other company like IBM or let's say even Lamor, I said we have a separate department whose KRA KPA is only to interact with academia. That is his only KRA KPA. He does nothing else. And he goes into universities, and we will try to inculcate or try to put our subject into their course. And sometimes we try to give a lot of books to the libraries there so that students can study it. So until unless you invest, it's an investment. Because until unless you invest in that way, this technology will not get developed, people will not get interested into it. So I think we need to develop that part of a system. I think it may come as CSR, but let's see how it happens in India. Another challenge is the approach of stakeholders. Now, who are the stakeholders in the marine pollution? Anybody who's carrying oil, using oil, ports, all these are stakeholders. Government, Coast Guard, all are stakeholders in India. And I said that we believe too much in God and we leave a lot of things to the God. कि जब होगा ही नहीं, हमारे यहाँ तो कभी हुआ ही नहीं, तो हमारे को करने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है कुछ भी. Why should I do it? And because we interact with almost all the ports. And the first question is, हमारे यहाँ तो कभी हुआ ही नहीं सर, हमारे यहाँ क्यों होगा ये? So why should we invest money in that? Now then the government has put a legislation. जैसे कि हमारे यहाँ हेलमेट कंपलसरी है, तो लोग क्या करते हैं कि लोहे की टोपी पहन लेते हैं सिर पे, वो प्लास्टिक का कैप होगा या माइनर्स हेलमेट पहन लेंगे, क्योंकि हेलमेट पहनना कंपलसरी है तो पुलिस चेक देख रहा है इसलिए पहन लिया है. बट इन द केस ऑफ एन एक्सीडेंट दैट हेलमेट इज नॉट गोइंग टू मेक यू लिव लॉन्ग. So the question is, you are not worried about your own head. Now imagine a challenge that I have to sell him an oil spill equipment which he says never happened in the past. So the person who is not worried about his own head, do you think I can sell an equipment and oil spill to him? So that is a big challenge here. And we don't have a real and adequate contingency plan. Now contingency plan is something that is made actually on hourly and daily basis, and I think Dr. Reddy had one of the solutions, that is one of the tool for the contingency plan, and it is in other countries it is changed every 6 months, because now because of the global warming the things are changing very frequently. Thing which used to happen, the monsoon used to come on 7th of June, now it is coming on 17th of June, or sometime it is coming on 1st of June. So you cannot really predict thing which you did last year कि इस साल भी वही होगा. So it is not going to happen that way. So we need to have this contingencies plan, which is also not there. Training of personnel, as I've said, हमारे यहाँ training is almost taken है कि आदमी ने बहुत अच्छा काम किया, चलो 4 दिन के लिए भेज दो इसे कहीं पे. So that is the problem. And जो आदमी training लेने आ रहा है, he is not the person who actually going to be working there at all. So that's another challenge that we have got. And as in the morning session also was there was no policy in India per se. So there are a multiplicity of agencies for oil spill response. There are state maritime board, there are central maritime board, there are DG hydrocarbon, there are oil companies, private companies, private ports, government ports, major port, minor ports, riverine ports. So everybody is working in his silo. Everybody is working in his own room, and nobody is looking at other दूसरा आदमी क्या काम कर रहा है. Whenever there is a problem, like in the case of Lamor, if you read that report, because we made a fantastic, thereafter report was made by the government. If you look at the report, nobody is responsible. Because everybody says, मेरा तो हुआ ही नहीं था ये, तो कहीं और हुआ था ये. So that is the biggest challenge. If you have multiple agencies, then there is a problem, because you can't fix accountability and responsibility thereafter. We have something called one size fit all, because normally what has happened is, since there are multiple agencies and government has to force a regulation, the government has made a list. Okay, type A port will have this kind of oil spill equipment, type B will have this kind of equipment, and type C will have that kind of equipment. Now in that, making that list, now imagine a port which is quite inside the, let's say Mumbai port. Mumbai port is also a type A port. But there could be a port which is quite inside the land, or where the mangrove forest is quite next to it, like the case of the Lamor port, for example. The fishing village is right next to the Lamor, which is not the case with the Mumbai port. So in the Lamor, within 12 hours, all the fishes in the area have died, and the compensation case is still going on between the fishing community and the Lamor port. But in the case of Mumbai port, it may not happen. So how can the equipment which is suitable for Mumbai port is also suitable for Lamor port? So no, because as I said, there is no contingency plan. The equipment are purchased based on the contingency plans, so what you actually need. So that is not there, and because of it, there is a one size, and everybody has to buy the same kind of equipment. Whether it works or doesn't work is a later approach. And I said the lack of sufficient knowledge and training. I think Dr. Saab is sitting right next to me. We have been buying, I mean, there is a requirement of a product called bioremediation. It's a bacteria which is required to kill the oil. And the requirement of government of India is that it should have a lifetime of 5 years. When you buy that particular container, it should stay active for 5 years. And when I had discussion with him, he said that no live bacteria can live more than a year or two, or that too in a condition, because you keep it in the jetty outside at a temperature of 40 degrees. But it's still going on. So that is the kind of knowledge that we have, and it's a very expensive equipment, a very expensive liquid that we have to buy. And again, we have an equipment-based approach, because what we do is we say that every port must have this equipment. They will not say that ultimately every port must have a capability to fight oil spill. That is not the aim. Aim is there is a list of equipment, somebody will come for checking, I will show him all the equipment available with me, and that ends the matter. but the approach should be solution based. The aim here is that oil spill, if it happens, you should be able to contain it. So that approach is different than the equipment approach that we presently have. Quality of equipment, as I rightly said, I gave you an analogy of helmet. It works everywhere same. We just want to tick mark, there is an equipment required, cheapest equipment should be there, whether it works or doesn't work, it's really not my concern. Finances, yes, every port is, now it's a vicious cycle actually, because if you do not have finances, you cannot really buy this equipment, and if you don't have the equipment, you could pay a penalty which could be running into millions of dollars. So it's a kind of a issue. And then most of the ports are government ports, so they have a procurement procedures how to buy a quality product even if they want to buy it. So that is an issue. And yesterday again it said, because there are people who may not be aware of the oil spill, there are tier 1, 2 and 3 kind of oil spill. Tier 1 is something, though it is very limited to the Indian environment concept, that anything which is 700 tons or below is considered as a tier 1, and anything above 700, 1500 ton is tier 2, and then more than that is tier 3. So in India at present there is tier 1 is supposed to be done by the agency itself, but tier 2 and 3 there are no agencies, no center, there are no professional agencies which can handle that. We are dependent, the companies are dependent mostly onto the agencies which are in Singapore based and all that, which will take about 48 to 50 hours, that too if customs give all clearances, otherwise it takes about 3 to 4 days to come to India. Like so, Mauritius, where we as the Indian Coast Guard provided support, it was government to government, still it took about 6 days for equipment to move from India to Mauritius. So that is the kind of thing. Recently in the meeting with the government, we have proposed a PPP model and asked them, okay, we can set up that and we'll invest on that response center in India. Now these are the problems. Now what are suggestions? I'll just quickly run away with it. One is the creating awareness, and the basic fact that we attend these kind of seminars is primarily for the purpose of creating awareness, because if you can carry home even 1% of what I've said, maybe it creates some kind of awareness at some level. We need to have a national maritime pollution response agency. Like the speaker in the morning session was saying that we don't have a national policy. The problem is who will devise that policy. Somebody has to work for it. So there's nobody who's working for it. So that's why it is not there. So we need to have a national maritime pollution response agency toward that line. We have to make enabling procedures in the law, because as of now there is within context in India there is not enough laws that are not available to prevent this kind of pollution or to pay the polluters. Polluters need to pay. That is not there as such. And equipment and service procurement should be done as per the specific need of the organization and the specific need of that particular stakeholder, because every situation is different. Just because somebody is an orthopedic surgeon, एक का जैसे लात का ऑपरेशन के सारे ऑपरेशन वैसे नहीं कर सकते, तो every patient is different. Similarly, in the case of oil spill, every customer is different, so every solution has to be customized. And again, say training has to be specific to the local needs and the local geography, and creation of emergency tier 2 and tier 3 response center. And we have proposed a PPP model because funds are always an issue with the government. So we have said the way we are doing national highways, same way it can be done in the tier 2 and 3 response center. So thank you. That was all from my end.